Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis. And this is Shyam Sir here taking up the analysis for 7th January 2026. Now before I start the session, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present, please give the confirmation. Thanks a lot. So in today's session, I've taken a total of 9 articles. Most of them are from the daily edition of Hindu newspaper. Some of them are from different newspapers. This is done in order to ensure that all the concepts related to prelims as well as the mains will be covered in the session. If you're liking the initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the session, here is a very important announcement for those aspirants who want to clear the civil services examination. Right now, all our courses are available at a discount of 60%. Check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Whatever is the price mentioned in the website, use the code IAS English and you will receive the discount. Once you enroll into courses, you will get access to the live as well as recorded lectures, reading material, the mentorship assistance, the prelims as well as mains test series. This is the right time to start your preparation. Do not miss out this opportunity. Now let me start. The first article, right to disconnect. Now what is the issue all about? What is the discussion happening in the current affairs? Very recently in the parliament, there was a private members bill introduced. A private members bill. Right, this particular private member I'm talking about, that is MP Supriya Sule. Supriya Sule introduced a private members bill. This particular bill essentially promotes the idea of right to disconnect. I repeat, right to disconnect. What is this concept of a right to disconnect? Under the right to disconnect, let's say you are employed in a company and this particular company has a condition that you're supposed to put in 8 hours of work on working days. Now, once you've finished your quota of 8 hours, once you have logged out of the system or you have moved out of the company after completing the 8 hours, it is entirely up to you whether you are available for the work or not. That is, in simple terms, let's assume 10 to 6 is the actual working time. I will log out of the company or log out of the system after 7 p.m. When the company will call me, let's say at 7 or let's say 7:30 or 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., they'll send a mail at 11:30 p.m. Now it is entirely up to me whether I want to respond to this particular mail, respond to this work request or not. Under this particular proposal which has been put forward, there is always a concern that if the employee doesn't respond after the working hours, there might be a retaliatory, right, let's say action taken by the manager. The manager might reprimand this particular person. You must have seen multiple videos, multiple instances, and I'm pretty sure some of you have experienced this already. Beyond the working hour, the manager will send a mail to you. If you do not reply in the WhatsApp group, they will tag you and basically say reply, otherwise action will be taken against you. So what if this kind of a behavior is observed in such cases? Under this proposal, there is no compulsion on you to reply to the work that is allocated beyond the working hours. Entirely up to you. And the management shall not take any action, I repeat, any action if you do not reply to these particular work-related calls, mails or messages beyond the working hours. And this is not the first time that this kind of a bill has been discussed or let's say introduced in the parliament. The same MP back in the year 2019 had introduced a similar bill. The problem with, let's say, the private members bill, I'm pretty sure all of you know by this now. A lot of these particular private bills are introduced. They are not generally discussed. Sufficient weightage is not given. And most of these particular private bills, private members bills, are not passed in the parliament. Very few of them so far have been passed. But now there is again a discussion associated with the right to disconnect. Reason being, Another MP, sitting MP, Mr. Shashi Tharoor, has introduced an amendment. I repeat, an amendment to another code, that is Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. I'll repeat the full form because a lot of you basically ask me to write the full form. I'll repeat it. Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. An amendment has been introduced. What is the argument? The argument is very simple. Right now, in India's corporate structure, that is in Indian companies, the focus is whether you're present for the work or not. Whether you're working remotely or in the office, doesn't matter. Whenever the company wants you to do some work, you should be available to do the work. Whether it is beyond your working hours, whether it is on the weekend, whether it is on a national holiday, doesn't matter. The focus right now is on number of working hours or whether you're present to work or not. This, the argument, the MP says, will lead to a lot of pressure on the individuals. In the past, I'm pretty sure you heard of instances where individual workers have not been able to take up this particular pressure, have succumbed to this particular pressure. Some of them have committed suicides as well. But even if they don't commit suicide, which is an extreme step, there is a lot of mental pressure, mental harassment that is undergone by the workers. So the issue is, one, there is no work-life balance. There is no proper work-life balance. This will be disturbed. And the problem is, historically, if you see, this is not the first time that this is being discussed, by the way. Historically, for example, when the Industrial Revolution took place, there was a pressure on the workers to put in more number of hours of work. And that actually led to a labor issue, led to labor revolution. You must have heard of 8 hours of work. And I'm pretty sure some of you would have thought, who decided this to be 8 hours? How come this came out to be 8 hours? This can be traced back to this particular industrial revolution and the issue of abuse or the misuse of the labor number of hours or the working hours. It was at this particular time period, that is during the industrial revolution, where the workers were asked to put in more number of working hours and they basically opposed it. And that actually led to a call which basically stated 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest and 8 hours for whatever you like. Is everybody able to understand the statement here? 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest and 8 hours for whatever you want to, right, or whatever you like. Right? That particular statement was made famous by a social reformer. It was made famous by a social reformer, Robert Owen. Right? This particular person made this particular statement very famous. Now, in the context of the modern days economies, are there any countries which have implemented this concept of work-life balance? Please have a look at the table that I've given on the left side of the slide. Right? Just look at the table. There are multiple countries around the world which have implemented effectively the right to disconnect laws. The right to disconnect laws. This can be asked in the prelims examination or even you can use the data in the mains examination. Please remember this. Multiple countries have implemented right to disconnect. Now in the context of India, this will basically disrupt. If there is no right to disconnect, it will disrupt work-life balance. And not to forget, it will put a lot of mental pressure on the workers. And when the workers do not get sufficient amount of rest, when the workers are mentally harassed throughout the day, throughout the week, and even in the weekends, their productivity would be affected. Simple. Their productivity would be affected. And in many of the cases, there is always a risk involved in the work. You might be driving a car, you might be riding a bike, or you might be operating a machinery, etc. If you are too much exhausted, you are already facing mental exhaustion, etc. You are physically exhausted. There are always very high chances that you might harm yourself, you might be involved in the accident, etc. This might even lead to loss of lives. So the argument is very simple here. It is leading to work-life balance. It is affecting productivity. It is affecting productivity, and it is right dangerous. And it will also lead to mental distress. And it will lead to this particular mental distress might force this particular person to seek right mental health care. Now, who is going to bear the expenditure associated with that? So these are some of the issues which have been raised. Now, before I go forward and tell you what has been proposed by the MP here, is it always in favor? That is, the argument should always be in favor of having a work-life balance. Let's have a look at the other side of the coin as well. Because I always tell you, focus on both the sides of the coin. If it was so much important to have work-life balance or right to disconnect like this, why have most of the countries around the world, I repeat, most of the countries around the world not implemented this? All of you able to understand? And please don't get me wrong. If you ask me, sir, personally, what is your viewpoint? I want to have a work-life balance. I think it should be available to everybody. There should be certain strict norms associated with what is the number of working hours. There should not be harassment of the workers if they don't want to work beyond the number of working hours. But the question also arises, if it is so important, why is that most of the countries around the world have not implemented? And another argument always in the favor of work-life balance is they will give you examples of Ireland. They will give you examples of Belgium, and they'll simply say, look at Ireland and Belgium. Look at, right, the laws that they have implemented. And as a result of this, also observe what is the improvement in their productivity. What is, right, the improvement in the productivity? They'll say in terms of productivity, these particular countries which have implemented the right to disconnect laws, they have very high productivity. And the ranking in terms of productivity of the countries, when they are measured, these particular countries rank very high. But listen to me very carefully. One of the survey which looks into all of these arguments says that even before the right to disconnect was implemented by these two countries, I repeat, even before the right to disconnect was implemented by these two countries, their ranking in the productivity when the countries were arranged, they were already in the top 10. Is my statement clear to all of you? Right? If somebody tells you, look at the productivity, please give them this argument. Even before the right to disconnect law was made in these countries, in terms of productivity, they were already in the top 10 countries. So it's not that with implementation of right to disconnect, suddenly there is a jump in the productivity. They were already very, very high in terms of productivity. And second one is, even if the laws are introduced, let's say the laws such as occupational safety, health and working conditions, OSHWC. This is a law which is being implemented or which has been notified by the government now. Under this particular code, the government basically mandates 48 hours of work per week. Right? It mandates that there should be maximum 48 hours of work per week. Now listen to me very carefully. Is this code covering all the workers? Right? Look at the argument. Is this code covering all the workers? No, it doesn't cover all the workers. There is a lacunae in this particular code. What is the lacunae? There is a gap in this particular code. This code basically is applicable for the establishment workers. This code is applicable to the workers working in mines. This is applicable to the workers working in factories. But most of the workers in India are gig workers. Correct? All of you heard of this? They are gig workers. They are platform workers. They are working, right, part-time for a lot of these particular companies. The code does not extend the same protection. It doesn't extend the same protection to these workers. So even though the law has been introduced, which mandates that 48 hours a week, per day 8, maximum 48. Of course, beyond that, are you allowed to be working in a company or can the company take more work from you? Of course, yes, but there is an overtime payment. There is an overtime payment that is mandated under this. So the concern is the law has been introduced, but the law doesn't cover all the workers. or in fact, most of the workers in India, because most of the workers in India are working as gig workers and platform workers. So that is the lacunae, and the member of parliament, right? The member of parliament who has written the article has introduced a bill, amendment bill in the parliament in order to make changes, right, to this particular law itself, or to make changes in the code and basically bring in all the workers, whether they are gig workers, platform workers, under the ambit of the code, and restrict the number of working hours to 48 hours. Then everybody is okay with the discussion here. So what should be the way forward? Whenever you discuss all these aspects, mention way forward as well, because way forward is very important. The way forward is, no doubt India needs to focus on the goal here. What is the goal? GDP, gross domestic product. And that is assuming by 29 and 30, or after 29 and 30, they will continue to focus on GDP. Because I don't know how many of you know this by now. There are multiple reports yesterday and day for yesterday. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has already planned to move away from GDP. They don't want to measure GDP now. If you're wondering, in that case, what they want to measure? NDP, net domestic product. And those who are confused why this movement is going to happen, what is the issue, etc., etc., I've already made a video, right, associated with this. Right, yesterday this particular video has been uploaded. Please do make time and watch the video. It is there in the same channel. So what is the way forward? Rather than focusing only on the number of working hours, my recommendation is, one, do not implement the right to disconnect uniformly applicable to all the industries immediately. Don't apply it immediately. Why? You do not know how it is going to work out in India. You do not know what will be the impact of that on all the sectors in India. It might create a shock in the economy suddenly if it is implemented. Why not conduct a pilot project if at all you want to implement? Why not conduct a pilot? For example, identify certain sectors or industries which are very much labor intensive, and try to target those, let's say, one or two industries, and in those industries, conduct a pilot. What is the impact? After the implementation of right to disconnect, has the productivity improved? Has the productivity gone down? What has happened to the overall industry? That is important. What has happened to the overall industry? Has its contribution to the GDP gone up or gone down? Conduct a pilot. At the same point of time, rather than focusing only on one reform, why not focus on other reforms as well? That is, why not focus on increasing productivity, right? Increasing productivity through other means as well, through other measures, other reforms as well. For example, why not promote adoption of better technologies? Why not focus on investment in R&D, which will contribute to improved technologies, adoption of better technologies? Why not focus on skilling of the labor? In fact, there is one more article that I'm going to cover next associated with the skilling problem in India. So the solution is not just only one reform. One reform is not going to change all the problems or address all the problems of the industries. Focus on multiple reforms, and whichever is suitable for India, which works best for India, implement those. So these are some of the recommendations. Now, quickly, please solve the MCQ and tell me what is the correct answer to the question. The OSHWC, I'm repeating this again, occupational safety, health and welfare. OSHWC code 2020 keeps the number of working hours same as it was under the Factories Act of 1948. The OSHWC code 2020 keeps the number of working hours at 48 hours per week. The above provision is applicable to full-time workers and gig workers. This should not be difficult. Third statement and second statement, third statement and second statement should not be difficult. Right? Let's start. Let me start with the third one. The above provision is applicable to full-time workers and gig workers. No, this is not applicable to the gig workers. I've already told you. Right? The code 2020 keeps the number of working hours at 48 hours per week. Yes. And I know a lot of you will be confused with the first statement. The Code 2020 keeps the number of working hours same as it was under the Factories Act of 1948. Tricky statement. The statement is correct, by the way. The statement is correct, right? The Code 2020 keeps the number of working hours same as Factories Act of 1948, which also mandated 48 hours of work per week. 48 hours of work per week. So first and second statement are true. Right option for the question will be option B. Only two of the statements are correct. Can we move on to the next now? Please take up a question for mains answer writing practice. Digitalization has blurred the boundary between work and personal life. Digitization has blurred the boundary between work and personal life. In this context, critically evaluate the need for right to disconnect. A 250 words question for a 15 marker. Please attempt mains answer writing as much as possible, at least one or two every day. Now, before I go forward, as already mentioned, I've already made a video on why the government of India is considering to move away from GDP to NDP, why the United Nations Systems of National Accounts 2025 framework says NDP is much more qualitative compared to GDP. Please make time and do watch the video. And second very important point I want to mention here is those who are appearing for the Civil Services Examination 2026. Right? I've already made a marathon session. I've taken a marathon session covering important basic concepts of banking sector, static information of banking sector. Certain more concepts are left out. I'll be covering this in another marathon session that will happen on Friday. I repeat, which will happen on Friday 7 p.m. Do join the live session. It will be for 2.5 hours or 3 hours. We'll cover the remaining part of banking. With that, whatever static portion is needed for the civil services examination from the chapter of banking, completely it will be covered. Okay, let's go forward. Next, one more very big article has appeared today associated with the skilling issue in India. The government of India now has to rethink how the skilling outcomes are achieved in India. Because listen to me carefully. Whenever you talk about what is the problem with India's manufacturing, the focus will not be so much on services because services sector contribution is more than 55% to India's GDP. So whenever there's a discussion as to what is the problem with India's economy, one important area will be manufacturing is a problem. Within manufacturing, when you basically dissect it, one of the important issues will be the skilled labor availability. Correct? The skilled labor availability. Right? They will simply say skilled labor availability is very less in India. Right? What is the data? According to the PLFS, according to Periodic Labor Force Survey, the skilled labor out of the total workforce in India is hardly around 4%. Is my statement clear to all of you? According to the PLFS, the skilled labor that is available in India out of the total workforce is hardly around 4%. It is exactly 4.1%. But in addition to this particular data, please remember one more set of data. According to economic survey, according to the previous year's economic survey, it basically mentions that the skilled labor available in India is around 11%. And I know somebody will look at the data and simply say, how can there be such a disparity? One says 4, another says 11. How much disparity? Why this kind of a disparity? The economic survey report simply says it is around 4.5%. Actually, formally skilled, formal, occasionally trained is around 4%. But in addition to that, there are other people, right, who will learn the skilling by themselves, who will learn the skilling on the job, etc. Right. So because of these kind of, let's say, people, or there are certain labor who are getting skilled like this, the overall skilled labor in case of India is around 11%. But anyways, the point is simple. The availability of skilled labor in India is very less. That's a fact. And when you compare this with other countries, China for that matter, the skilled labor out of the total workforce is more than 24%. In Germany, Japan, South Korea, it is more than 50, 60, 70%, etc. So the problem is very clear. Skilled labor availability is lesser. Now, despite being multiple decades where the government of India has implemented reforms, one reform after the other, why is that this problem existing even today? Right? The question is simple. Multiple reforms, multiple initiatives. For example, Skill India initiative was launched. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana was launched. Right? The apprenticeship program, right, has been launched. The internship program has been launched by the government recently. So, in the last 1.5 to 2 decades, multiple reforms have been implemented by the government of India in order to promote skilling of the labor. But even today, why only a small percentage of the total workforce is skilled? These are the reasons. First, very important reason. In case of India, whenever we apply for a job, most of the times the jobs are decided, that is whether I get a job or not is decided based on educational qualification. Is everybody able to understand? It is decided most of the times based on educational qualifications. Why? Listen to me very carefully. If I want to apply for a job, a lot of times the job mandate will be, the precursor for application will be, I should have a degree. I should have passed 10th class. I should have passed 12th class. I should have, right, let's say a double degree like this. I should be an undergraduate, postgraduate, etc. Right? So in this particular situation, when I'm a student, I'm looking at getting a job in the future. When the job requirement is basically get a degree, why will I be focusing on getting myself equipped with the skill set when I'm in a college? When I'm in the school, why will I be even worried? And moreover, in case of India, the educational structure is done in this way that there is no program to provide skilling when the students are in high schools or when the students are in colleges or undergraduation, etc. For example, why can't we have one program, right? Let's say certain within the curriculum itself, why not include one particular component of skilling the, right, let's say students, so that they will acquire these particular skill sets and there is a certificate to back this, and now easily, right, they will be absorbed in the market because along with the educational criteria, they will also have certain skill sets. Right? So that is one important issue. That's the reason the argument is include the skilling as a part of curriculum. Include the skilling as a part of curriculum. So this is on one side associated with education. What about industries? The industries, right, they want the skilled labor, correct? The companies want the skilled labor. But many of these particular companies, they are not interested in participating in creating a framework where skilled labor can be created. What do I mean by that? There are different ways the industry can basically provide inputs to the government. Industries can hire the people, provide them with the skill set. Right? They can hire apprentices. In fact, there is one act, National Apprentices Act. Right? Apprentices Act of 1961. Under the Apprentices Act, if you are an establishment, if you have 30 or more than 30 workers, then annually you will have to hire certain number of apprentices, that is trainees. You will have to hire certain number of apprentices. A lot of the companies do not follow this. A lot of establishment keep their number of employees below 30, below 10 in order to not to come under, to ensure that they will not come under these kind of regulations. So the participation of the industries itself is weaker. Industry participation is weaker. They require the skilled labor, but they basically behave as if it is the duty of the government to provide the skilled labor to them. They will basically say, I want to hire, but there is no skilled labor in the market. And whenever these particular companies want to hire, rather than going through any other mechanism, for example, job melas are there. right? So many programs are conducted by the government. I'll give you one example. There was one portal set up by the government, which is named MSME Sampark, where the government of India wanted to connect the employer with the employee. So these companies, rather than using these kind of mechanisms, will basically promote hiring through existing employees. That is, they will ask the employees to refer somebody. They will basically, right, they will have their own mechanisms, right, to hire, poach from another company, right, ask the employees to refer somebody, etc., like this. So problem is industry participation, that is also weaker. And the third one is essentially fourth one, sector specific councils. Sector specific councils. The government of India has been promoting the concept of a sector specific council. What is this idea of a sector specific council? Let's say textile sector is there. There will be one body which is representing the interest of, right, the textile sector. Now these particular bodies which are representing different sectors have been asked to set up a council. What is the use of these particular council? Rather than the government creating one council and making policy for all the sectors, which might be a faulty, right, approach, because what is the requirement of the skilled labor for textile will be different compared to information technology, will be different compared to hospitality, will be different compared to civil aviation. So sector specific councils have been promoted, and these councils will study what kind of skilled labor requirement is there in the specific sector, and that should be promoted. These kind of policies should be promoted to provide the skilling to the labor which shall be hired by the companies which are operating in the same sector. The problem here is there is a fragmented approach. There is a fragmented approach. What do you mean by fragmented approach? Somebody will create a curriculum. There will be one more entity which will provide the training. There will be a third entity which will certify whether the training has been provided, whether the candidate is trained having a skill set or not. And there will be one more entity which is basically facilitating the placement of this candidate with the company. So when you have this kind of a fragmented approach, despite having sector specific councils, the outcomes will be very poor. That is the reason the article simply argues that in order to promote the idea of a skilled labor availability, absorption in the market, the lacuna right now is not that the government is not interested. It's not that the government is not providing funding. It's not that there are no schemes. In fact, all of these are there. The problem is with accountability. Everybody is able to understand the statement here? The problem here is with accountability. Everything is there, but is it being implemented correctly or not? I'll give you one example. The government in the budget of 2024 announced internship scheme. Under that, lakhs of internship was supposed to be provided to the candidate. On paper, we have given lot of internship, right? Let's say the papers, they have been issued, the offers have been issued for internship, but hardly a third of them have been used up by the candidates. What is the reason? Reason is I applied for internship with the company, but the company is very far away now. I don't want to go there. The internship offer has been given to me, but the skill sets they are offering to provide to me, I'm not interested in that. They are giving me a different skill set. I'm not interested in that. So the argument is it's not that there's a lacuna of policy making. There is no lacuna. We have policies. The problem is the implementation, the accountability part of it. Done? Right? So please look at the question here. Please practice the mains answer writing. Skilling without accountability weakens employability outcomes. Discuss the statement in the context of employment issue in India. A 250 word question or 250 word answer should be written, a 15 marker question. Done? Can I move on to the next one now? Those present, please do let me know. Can I move on to the next article? Okay, next one. Sufferers of poor AQI contribute to the problem. Very interesting observation of Supreme Court of India. Very interesting observation. Right? Listen to me very carefully. Couple of days ago, there was one editorial in Business Line. I believe it was yesterday only. There was one editorial in Business Line. The argument of the editorial was that whenever there is an air pollution issue, and I know you have heard of this particular topic multiple times, I'm not going to cover the same thing again. Listen to the another angle now. The argument of the editorial was whenever there is an air pollution issue in Delhi, the fingers are pointed at farmers. The criticism is always leveled against farmers. We simply say farmers are at fault here. That is, the farmers in Punjab and Haryana, they burn the stubble because they want to clear the field. They burn the stubble. As a result of that, all the emissions from these particular states will basically fly like this, will move along with the wind and get settled right in Delhi. So whenever there is a criticism that has to be leveled because of the problem of AQI in Delhi, right, basically by default, the farmers are held at fault. Now, before I go forward, please do not assume that I am saying the farmers have no fault at all. Please do not assume that. Yes, there is a problem. There is an issue. The farmers burning the stubble contributes to the deterioration of air quality in Delhi. But now the question is, how much percentage of the pollution that is caused in Delhi is because of the stubble burning? This is a question. And that is where the Supreme Court of India has given this observation and criticized the CAQM. They have criticized the CAQM. And the Supreme Court yesterday has issued an order that the hearing will happen associated with this particular issue. That is the air pollution problem in Delhi. The hearing will happen once every fortnight now. Once every fortnight. Irrespective, I repeat, irrespective of whatever is the air quality in the coming days in Delhi. The statement or the order which was issued by the Supreme Court simply stated whether the air quality drops down to 1 or 700, increases to 700, doesn't matter. Once every 2 weeks, we will take up the hearing of this particular issue. What is the reason? Reason is simple. The authority was asked to find out how much percentage of the air pollution is caused by stubble burning and how much because of the activities that are conducted in Delhi. Simple. How much of it is because of the stubble burning, how much because of the activities. And if you're wondering, sir, what kind of activities within Delhi you're talking about, let me give you certain examples here. First example, vehicular pollution. Right? Vehicular pollution. And why I'm writing this as the first parameter or first reason, the data simply shows that Delhi has more than 1.3 crore vehicles. Look at the data. Delhi has more than 1.3 crore vehicles. And annually, 6 to 7 lakh vehicles are registered and are used in Delhi. The problem is, when the lanes are not wider, the construction of the roads is not keeping pace with the vehicles being purchased. Lot of these particular vehicles are diesel vehicles, etc. Automatically, there will be emissions and there will be contribution to the air pollution. Simple. There will be emission and there will be contribution to air pollution. And just remember this particular data set. A third of the PM 2.5 or 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, a third of PM 2.5 emissions in Delhi are caused because of vehicles. A third of it, not a small number, a third of PM 2.5, right, emissions are caused because of vehicles. That is the first important issue. Second important issue is construction. Construction. In Delhi, the construction activities goes on throughout the year. It is a very important economic activity. And because the construction happens, automatically there will be a lot of dust created. There will be emission cost. In fact, according to one survey, the construction as well as the road dust, right, the road dust plus construction activity account for 20% of the total particulate matter that is emitted in Delhi. 20% of the total particulate matter. So have a look at the issue here. Along with this, there are many other issues. Old vehicles or heavy vehicles entering and passing through Delhi. right? Along with that, the municipality burning waste, right? There are so many issues which are contributing to the pollution that is happening in Delhi. So the court simply asked the authority, please tell us how much of this is because of the failure of administration within Delhi and how much of it is caused because of the external activities such as stubble burning. The estimate that was given was 20%. That is 20% was caused because of the stubble burning, remaining is because of the activities within Delhi. The Supreme Court basically said there is a discrepancy. There is a discrepancy here. The amicus curiae says 20%, but there are many other surveys which show that it is 40%. And that's the reason the Supreme Court now has given a time period of 2 weeks for the authority. They have given a time period of 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, they must conduct the study and submit the data to the Supreme Court of India, giving a clear data regarding the contribution of the pollution that is caused from which sector, how much, who are the contributors, etc. etc. The data should be given to the Supreme Court of India in the next 2 weeks. Done? So this is there in the newspaper. Now, let me ask you this particular question. Very recently, this was there in the newspapers. The PUC certificate. The PUC essentially is the pollution control certificate, right? Pollution under control certificate. Very recently in Delhi, those vehicles which did not have a PUC certificate, they were not allowed to refill. This order has been issued. So this is a question to all of you. Please tell me what is the correct answer. Consider the following statements. It is mandatory for all the vehicles on roads to possess a valid PUC certificate under the Central Motor Vehicles Rules 1989. The PUC certificate is mandatory for the vehicles using petrol, diesel, CNG and LPG. As expected, most of you who have given the answer so far are saying option A. Right? Because you look at the second statement and simply say LPG. Correct? You will be looking at the second statement, LPG, CNG, etc. and you feel that is incorrect. My dear, both the statements are correct, by the way. Both the statements are correct. Right? Because the Motor Vehicles Act and Motor Vehicles Rules basically says if you are a car or a vehicle which is using an ICE, internal combustion engine. If you're a vehicle which is using ICE, you will have to have a PUC. You will have to have a PUC. Done? Right? So first statement, second statement, both are correct. Right option for the question will be option C, both the statements. Let's go forward. China bans dual-use goods exports to Japanese military. Right? This is the next step in the series of the steps which have been taken by the government of China, right? Because of what has been happening between China as well as Japan. Now we have discussed this multiple times. Let's focus on what is there currently. The Chinese government has announced a new policy. Under this particular new policy, they have identified around 800 plus items. They have identified around 800 plus items, including a lot of rare earths. Including a lot of rare earths, where they're basically saying these are dual use items. These are dual use items. Everybody is able to understand? Dual use items. Now, these particular dual use items, what is the meaning of it? These can be used for civilian purposes. These can be used for defense purposes. Simple. Civilian as well as defense. For example, rare minerals. Can they be used in civilian purposes? Of course, yes. Right? Electric cars, etc., mobile phones, etc. But the same rare minerals or rare earths can also be used in many of the weapons, many of the missiles, many of the technologies that are used and that are developed and used by the military. So they are calling this as dual usage items. Now the Chinese authorities are simply saying they will ban these particular 800 plus items. The list has 800, the government will decide. They will ban the export of these to Japan. What is the argument here? They are basically arguing if these dual use items are sent to Japan, these will be used for improving their military power. They will use this, right, to basically develop a technology, missiles, etc., and that will strengthen their military. We don't want militarization or increased military power of Japan. That's the reason they want to ban. Now, the basic argument is this, but the larger picture is that the Chinese government is pressurizing or imposing a lot of pressure on Japan. And all of this started with the statement given by the Prime Minister of Japan, where she basically stated if China will attack Taiwan, then right, the Japan will take it as an event which is going to hurt its independence, which is challenging its existence, and it will take certain military action. All this started with this statement given by the Prime Minister. Although the Prime Minister of Japan has got the support of the political party as well as the public support, because after this announcement was done, the actions were taken by China earlier. For example, they started cancelling all the flights right to Japan. They started stopping or banning the import of seafood from Japan, etc. The public opinion has moved in favor of the Prime Minister of Japan. But now China simply is targeting the export of these dual-use items so that the manufacturing of certain products which can be used for civilian purposes will be disrupted. Economic activity in Japan will be disrupted. And that might put pressure on the government there to retract or to basically make certain changes to the earlier stance taken towards Taiwan. But listen to me carefully. This is not the first time that China is using this kind of a tactic to pressurize Japan. Of course, in the context of other countries, normally, right, there is a weaponization of the trade that is done by China. But in the context of Japan, this is not the first time. Back in the year 2010, there was a diplomatic standoff between both the countries. There was a diplomatic standoff. One of the fishing vessels, right, from China, one of the fishing vessels, right, had a friction with the Coast Guard vessel of Japan, right, and the people were arrested by Japan, and that led to the diplomatic standoff between both of the countries. Back then also, China had used the same tactic. And back then, the Japanese economy had 90% import dependence on China. That is rare earths. 90% dependence. And now, this is somewhere around 70% import dependence. But nevertheless, 70% is very high, by the way. Just like India, which is heavily import dependent on these critical minerals, even Japan is facing this particular dilemma now. Right, so let's wait and see what will be the stance taken by the Japanese government going forward. But this is a very important update. Now, based on this, right, pure, right, let's say static question, please tell me what is the correct answer to this. Consider the following statements. The rare earths are a subset within the critical minerals. The rare earths are 17 metals and non-metals listed in the periodic table. Again, I am saying, second statement, some of you might feel it is difficult or it is slightly tricky. A lot of you will look at the statements, right, and feel this is not from current affairs. Absolutely true. Purely static portion. Okay, what is the key answer? So far, I've got option A from some of you, option B from some of you, and option C also from some of you. Somebody also take up option D so that you will have all the options chosen. Rare earths are a subset within the critical minerals. This is a correct statement. This is the correct statement. First one is correct. Right? So first statement is correct. The rare earths are 17 metals and non-metals. Underline the term non-metals. This is the trick. Non-metals. The rare earths are metals, not non-metals. Is everybody okay? Right? These are metals, not non-metals. Okay? So the 17 rare earths are metals, right? Non-metals is incorrect. So right option for the question will be option A. Only the first statement is correct. Only the first statement is correct, not the second statement. Right? So sometimes these kind of tricky statements or difficult statements can be asked. For example, the UPSC might ask you a statement or give a statement. Most of the rare earths are basically lanthanides. Let me see how many of you know. The chemistry students will be very happy today. The chemistry background students will be, PCM students will be very happy. Right? Most of the rare earths are belonging to lanthanide series, they'll say. Yes, by the way, this statement is correct. Out of 17 rare earths, 15 are lanthanides. 15 are lanthanides. That is basically a series in the periodic table. Okay, let's go forward. Water quality rankings sink without a trace. What is the issue all about? In recent times, there has been a lot of discussion associated with drinking water quality. Right? Now, listen to me very carefully. Drinking water quality. Now, there is a debate that is happening. Why doesn't Government of India come out with a ranking or an index which will keep a measure of what is the quality of drinking water throughout India? In which state, right, the let's say the contamination is lesser, which state has a very high quality of drinking water. For example, you can apply the logic that we have used in Swachh Sarvekshan, right, mission, or such a Sarvekshan scheme, where the cities are ranked based on the performance on certain parameters. So you have a parameter, you have an index, you have a particular, let's say, platform which is measuring the performance of various cities in India. You have a plan to rank them. Why not adopt the same idea in providing the quality associated with drinking water throughout India? Correct. That is the argument. Now comes the interesting part. Now comes the interesting part. The Government of India, specifically the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, MOHUA, back in the year 2023 had announced such survey. I'll repeat the statement. Right, couple of years ago had announced such a survey, and the name of the survey is Pay Jal Sarvekshan. Right, the MOHUA had announced a survey that is basically Pay Jal Sarvekshan. Right, that is back in the year 2024. The result was supposed to be announced. Some of the districts were supposed to be given a prize, etc. The argument was the data was collected from multiple cities throughout India, and basically there were certain parameters based on which the data was collected, and right, the certain cities which had performed very well were ranked, were supposed to be given certain prizes. For example, what kind of parameters were considered under this? The quality of drinking water. The quality of drinking water. What is the quality of drinking water when it will live? Right? Basically, the treatment plants. When it will live, the treatment plants. And what is the quality of drinking water when it reaches the taps in the household? Look at the coverage here. Right? What is the quality of the water when it will leave the treatment plant? Because at every place there are treatment plants. Right? They will have to keep on checking what is the quality of the water and ensure that the safe drinking water will reach the households. And we will also collect the water samples from the households where the water is received, right, and check the quality. So different parameters were considered based on which certain best performing cities or the districts were identified. But after this particular first survey was conducted, what happened to the survey? There is no information associated with that. What are the results of the survey? No information. The report of the survey, no information whatsoever. So now the demand of various experts is, why not, right, revive this? Why not bring this particular survey on annual basis? Why not find out what is the quality of drinking water, right, at household levels? Because listen to me carefully. Whatever instances are happening right now or happened in the past, the instances where the drinking water is contaminated is not at the plant level. It is not at the first point of the supply. It happens somewhere between, right? The water leaves the treatment plant and the water reaches the tap of a household. It happens somewhere between there. Right? So you have to ensure that the quality of the drinking water is not just tested at the treatment plant. It is tested at the spot where consumers or the users, right, start tapping or start taking from the tap. And that was very efficiently done under this particular survection. But the report has not been made public. So the demand now is to revive this particular, right, let's say, survey. Everybody is okay with this? Now, based on this, please solve the question. Tell me what is the key answer very quickly. How many of the pairs are correctly matched? How many of the pairs are correctly matched? Swachh Sarvekshan Survey, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Pay Jal Sarvekshan Survey, same authority. Composite Water Management Index, Niti Aayog. This is one more very interesting index, by the way. At Composite Water Management Index, Niti Aayog. How many of the three pairs are correctly matched? What is the key answer? Quickly. Don't use, let's say ChatGPT. Don't use Google. Please tell me quickly. And again, even if you don't know, nothing wrong. It's a learning process. It will basically show to what extent you are able to revise, understand current affairs. Swachh Sarvekshan Survey, this should not be difficult for you because Indore has come in the newspaper so many times now in the last 2 weeks. And every time they mention this, they will basically use a statement like a taunt, sarcasm. They'll say, right, ironically, this was the same city which was placed at the top in the Swachh Sarvekshan Survey for 8th consecutive year, etc. So first one, correct, MOHUA. Payjal Sarvekshan Survey, right, MOHUA, yes, this was also conducted by MOHUA. Composite Water Management Index, this was one more type of an index that was published by Niti Aayog earlier. It was being published by Niti Aayog earlier. But what happened? There is no clarity regarding this. After 2020, right, 2017, 2018 data is available for you. After that, Niti Aayog has not published the data or the index ranking under the Composite Water Management Index. But anyways, the third one, Niti Aayog, is correct. All the three statements or all the three pairs are correctly matched. Right option will be option C, all the three. Done? Okay. A couple of more important articles. How Haryana turned around sex ratio at birth, now close to national average. I've taken this article from Indian Express. Reason being, this particular article, right, can be used as a prime example for you to show that there are ways to control the issue of the declining child sex ratio in India. And why is this article important? According to the census of 2011, Haryana had one of the worst performing child sex ratios. One of the worst performing. Right? What was the child sex ratio in Haryana back in the year, back according to the 2011 census? It was 834. 834. Right? The girl children or girls per 1,000 boys. Right? One of the worst performing. And that is the precise reason why Government of India, in the year 2015, when they launched Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, the initiative, it was launched in Haryana. It was launched from Haryana itself. Right? So, when you look at this, it was one of the worst performing regions. But according to the latest data, which has been given as a statement in the parliament, Haryana has improved a lot and its child sex ratio is much, much better now, even closer to the national average. The national average right now is 933 girls for every 1,000 boys. And the number associated with Haryana now is 923. Very closer, 923. So back in 2011, 834, now 923 for every 1,000 boys. What was the measure or what kind of system was implemented by Haryana, which can be a case study for you to quote in the mains examination. These are the following measures which were undertaken. Please remember them and mention them if at all a question is asked in the mains examination. Let's start. The first one, the effective implementation of PNDT and MTP. What is PNDT? PNDT stands for Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques. Right? PCPNDT, there is a law. PNDT and MTP. MTP stands for Medical Termination of Pregnancy. In lot of cases, the households which do not want a girl child terminate the pregnancy, and they're able to do that by conducting a sex determination test, right, using certain technology. That is the scanning centers, etc. there. Now, under the laws, that is specifically under PCPNDT, after the scanning is done, what is the sex, right? It is not supposed to be revealed to the parents. They are not going to reveal it. In fact, now they are not even allowing the husband to enter into rooms now where the scanning is done. So the government here effectively implemented the provisions under these. How so? the licenses of many of the scanning centers were cancelled because they were found to be violating the provision. And not just this, more than 1,375, or exact number is 1,375, more than 1,300 FIRs have been filed in the last 10 years, that is between 2015 to 2025, for violation of offences under the PCPNDT and MTP Act. 1,375 FIRs. That's the first one. Second one, the second important reform is there was a scheme implemented at the rural level, Saheli program. Saheli program. Under the Saheli program, what the government did was they identified certain, right, let's say the pregnant women who already had at least one girl child, and they were asked to register, right, with Asha co-worker. Right? What was the logic behind it? The Asha co-worker will basically keep a track as to what is happening in this household, whether the pregnant woman is being pressurized, etc. Because in lot of these particular households, there is a preference of a right, let's say the boy, the boys or the boy child rather than, right, the female again. So there should not be any pressure which will lead to the medical termination, because the woman has already given birth to one girl child or at least one girl child. So the Saheli program was implemented. The third one, the state government here implemented an initiative where if any citizen finds out that there are certain scanning centers who are violating the provisions, they are revealing the sex of the, right, let's say baby, etc., they would be given, right, 1 lakh rupees upon tipping the authorities. The authorities will be given a tip. Now the authorities will go, right, close the center and impose penalties and file an FIR, etc. 1 lakh rupee, right, for the tip, the correct tip which was given against the, let's say, the offenders. In addition to this, there was also a 12-digit unique ID. A 12-digit unique ID was given to every pregnant woman. 12-digit unique ID. Right? Whenever they go to the government hospital or private hospital, they will have to, right, they will have to basically quote this particular 12-digit unique ID. What is the importance of this? The government will be able to keep a track, right, whether the pregnant woman is going for timely checkup or not. If there is any kind of a issue which will lead to, let's say, termination of pregnancy, what was the reason behind it? Were all the tests conducted correctly or not? This kind of a tracking can be done by the government using this particular 12-digit unique ID which was issued to every pregnant woman. So these are some of the reforms or measures which were implemented by the state government of Haryana with, right, let's say the local authorities, the police department, using which the data shows there were, right, let's say more than 65,000 girl children have been saved because of it. I repeat, in the last 10 years, more than 65,000 girl children have been saved because of this, which means if these measures were not implemented, right, there could have been termination of pregnancies. Right, so more than 65,000 girl children have been saved because of the measures. Done? Okay, so these are certain important points. Please remember them, mention them in the mains examination. US takeover of Greenland. US takeover of Greenland would mark an end of NATO. This is a statement which has been provided by the Danish Prime Minister. What is the importance of this particular statement? The President of USA very recently, for umpteenth time now, has shown interest either by, right, whether on their own, the Greenland should become part of USA. If not, right, they will basically acquire or they will use the military force to acquire Greenland. The reason which has been cited as to why the president is so much interested in Greenland is one, it is strategically important for them, right, for location of their defense forces. And already their defense forces, to a certain extent, they are already located in Greenland. In addition to that, it is also important for the USA because the argument is it is having abundant availability of natural resources. It has abundance of natural resources. So, citing the defense requirement, citing the strategic requirement, again and again, the president of USA has threatened to acquire, right, basically Greenland. Now, the issue is if Greenland will be acquired, or let's say Greenland will be attacked by USA, what will happen to NATO? Because listen to me carefully, Greenland, right, is basically part of Danish, right, that is Denmark. Greenland, right, is under Denmark, although it has autonomous government, right, they have their own government, etc. It is under the Denmark. Denmark is a member of NATO. NATO was formed back in 1949, and according to the Article 5 of NATO, if any member of NATO is attacked, then it will be considered as an attack on all the other member countries of NATO, and all these member countries will come and start protecting by attacking the attacker. So now question is, what if a member of NATO will attack another member of NATO? All of you able to understand? This is a confusion because there's no clarity. Article 5 basically provides protection if somebody from outside will attack outside NATO. But now the question is, what if USA, which is a member of NATO, will attack NATO, another member of NATO? So that is the reason now the Prime Minister of Denmark simply says, if USA will attack Greenland and try to take over the Greenland, it will be basically the end of NATO, right? Because there is, right, let's say, no way this should be allowed. Done, right? So one more article, Waterbird Census. Waterbird census finds 9,000 birds along Yamuna plains. Now don't focus on the, right, let's say the Yamuna plains. What is the importance of this article? Waterbird census. Right, this is the important word. Waterbird census basically is conducted, right, under the concept of Asian Waterbird Census. Asian Waterbird Census. Right, this particular census is conducted along the South Asian countries, and this is conducted annually. Right, this is conducted annually. In India, right, the 40th census is being 40th, not 14th, 40th census is being conducted, and from 3rd it is being conducted till 18th January. Right, so these are certain important points. And listen to the next point carefully. This is not the census which is conducted by United Nations or by the government of India individually. No, it is conducted, right, basically between one Asian Waterbird Census and second one, the Wetlands International. So these are basically the two entities which are main parties for promotion and conducting this particular waterbird census. But at the national level and at the state level, different authorities do participate. Done. So the last article for today, just factual information. ISRO is basically, right, asking for or calling for proposals from various Indian scientists to analyze the data from Aditya-L1. Right, we have completed the second year, that is basically the second anniversary of the solar mission Aditya-L1. Right, this particular space observatory, right, is located at L1 point, which is studying, which is collecting the data associated with the activities happening on sun, and lot of this particular data has been sent to, right, let's say the ground station. Now ISRO is basically calling the other scientists in India to come forward and basically try to, right, study the data which has been submitted or which has been collected so far. Right, so beyond this, Aditya-L1, right, the PSLV, the rocket that was launched or used for launching this, it was launched in back 2023. It was stationed at this particular point, right, in 2024. Why at this particular point, Lagrange point, L1, right? Because the forces, gravitational forces between the sun and earth are balanced at this particular point. These are certain important points that you need to remember in the context of this article. Okay. Right. So these are the various articles, concepts, as well as the questions I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. If you have liked the session, do not forget to hit the like button. If you are yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it today. And before I close the session, don't worry about the PPT. After the session is over, the PPT will be uploaded in the Telegram channel. Please do download it. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. See you tomorrow sharp at 10 a.m. Till then, take care.